Okay. Hey Dan, welcome to the show, and I'm excited to have you here today at the phenomenal podcast. And I just want so take a minute and to share the audience about you and what you do, and then we can get started.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it. Do you want me to begin or do you prefer to
Yeah,
begin?
yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so my name is Dan. I've been running the company VisualFizz, my marketing firm for the past 7 years. Before that, I've been in the agency world for another few years, and even before that, I started my own business. So I've been a serial entrepreneur. I've been a marketer, um, really focused heavily on the growth stage companies and or greater. My role specifically is heavily ingrained into the new business side, growth and strategy. But really happy to be here, and I'm sure we'll get much more in depth around Visual Fizz and how we do things and how I do things. So thanks for having me.
Fantastic, fantastic. What led you to start the visual fees? Maybe just start with the backstory a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. So I come from a family of, entrepreneurs, and I knew that I was going to start a business even before going to college. And I started my first business back in college, and I was actually in operations management and finance, which is not marketing, and started my first kind of tech company. Went part-time during that time for school and built my first company, which involved me having a marketing agency. I had developers, I had interns, kind of the whole thing. Um, After that business, I moved into the marketing side and I worked for a series of agencies, large, medium, and small, and really found my happy place in the mid-size agency world. The large ones, I was doing 7, 8 figure projects. The small ones, I was doing 5 roles at the same time. But in the mid-size, I was able to really have a voice and kind of work in a project size that I felt was really right. Um, but within all of the agencies I worked at, as well as everywhere I've contracted at, I felt that there was an underlying inefficiency in a lot of agency structures, and there was a lot of overhead, a lot of bloat. And this is also pre-COVID. So, the office was a huge deal. Spending a ton on client pitches was a big deal. And remote culture was actually relatively frowned upon.
Mm.
So when I kind of switched over from the agency side, from working at the agencies to wanting to launch one of my goals was stay relatively remote friendly because I love to travel and I do like working from home. And I believe team members do their best work, when they're most comfortable. But beyond that, more importantly, focus on mitigating a lot of the overhead and risk associated with underutilized team staff members, a big office, and too many people all in all, where you have to charge a lot more for your projects, but the outcome isn't as profitable for you, but also it's not as high quality for the clients. And so over time, our kind of big, let's say, decision as a strategy for Visual Fizz, even since day one, was ultimately to focus on hiring the best quality people that we can, even if it meant paying more. And even though that's kind of counterintuitive to saving money and being, overhead light, it was actually a really great move from the beginning up till today, where we have individuals who have 10, 15 plus years of experience minimum, but they do the task one time and they do it very well instead of constantly training and redoing work. So that's just a high level, and I'm sure we'll get more into it, but that was really why I wanted to start the agency, is build something creative, but do it in a very smart fashion that can scale up.
Fantastic. So for the past 7 years, maybe you share with the audience like where you are in terms of in terms of team size and revenues and things like that.
Yeah, I'll try to share as much as I can. Over the past 7 years, we've scaled up about 65% year over year on average. In the beginning, those numbers were very large, and now, we're starting to scale up as well, kind of in the same trajectory. But, the challenges come with the greater numbers. Our team is about 25, and we have a hybrid structure. So one of the kind of important things I always like to mention is that we, as an agency, have had the same team members for 3, 4, 5, 6 of the years we've been in business, because the contract side of things has been really positive for quite a few of my team members, where we're still kind of the majority employer, but they're able to take on other tasks to fill their schedule. That was one of the big reasons why I was able to afford individuals who have that 10, 15, 20 years of experience. Beyond that, right now we are a 7+ figure agency annually. Though I don't want to disclose the exact number, I will say that it's been really a great opportunity to be able to say that, because obviously we hit those goals, faster and faster each year. And just to give you an idea, it took us the first 4 to 5 years to hit that 7 figure mark, and then after that, it's within 9 months and 6 months. So we're constantly trying to beat our own, obviously our revenue goals. And beyond that, what else can I say? Our full-time team is about 10, 12 people, and then the rest is contract based.
So 10 to 12 people full time, and the rest they just contract based. And
Mhm.
that you hit it took you 4 to 5 years to hit seven figures agencies.
Yeah, it took us about, I want to say about 4
Oh,
years and
oh
change to hit
yes.
that.
And
Yeah,
it's
that
like you
first.
hit, so right now are you below 5 million mark, or like between
Currently, we're below the 5 million mark.
oh,
Yeah.
5 million mark? Okay, got it. And okay, so I think we can dive into a little deeper. So, within your 7 years, what are some of the stories, or some of the things you did, or strategy, whatever, that help you achieve more in 12 months than you did in the last 12 years by looking back what you know now?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, definitely one of the big things is being able to remove yourself from some of the workload. It's very easy for a lot of entrepreneurs to get stuck in their day to day,
Mhm.
which actually discourages growth and opportunity and outbound sales opportunities and everything else that comes with it, because they're constantly being reactive instead of proactive. And so once we brought in our first major kind of client that was able to pay the bills, let's say, we right away hired our first project manager. And then the next year we hired 2 more people full time. And then the next year we hired 5 more full time. And so by being able to do that and constantly communicate with the team the different roles and the role structures that I have, my co-founder has, and the team members have, we're able to take a little bit off of our plate each time we bring in the next person. And a good analogy that I always use, because I feel like it's so crucial for small businesses, especially in the agency space, is our full-time staff. If you think of like a jar, right? Our full-time staff members are the large kind of rocks that go inside. And then our contractors are specialists, and they're kind of like pebbles. And then we have these super specialists who we only bring on very specific projects. They're highly trained at just 1 or 2 great things. They're kind of the sand. And together as a team, we fill that jar, knowing that each one of us has just a small piece of it. But in order to fill it, we need to have that variance in like what we own and who we are in the business. So I'd say my biggest thing is being able to remove responsibility,
Mhm.
and give it to somebody else. And then the second thing is you have to invest in yourself. And I think one of the biggest things that we've seen is we grew 50, 60% during COVID, year 2020, and then another 70 something percent during 2021. And the biggest I think factor there is, instead of worrying about cash flow and taking everything off the table and removing our team, and we never got rid of anybody. What we did instead of that is, doing that, is we invested in everything. We built a new website, cost tens of thousands of dollars. We started putting money into ads on platforms like Clutch and Upsteady and all these other aggregator websites. We got into reviews. We started putting up videos. We started, focusing on infrastructure, blogs, SEO. And we've never kind of been like the, cobbler's shoe situation where we're not focusing on our internal business. VisualFizz is VisualFizz's client, and we treat it just the same. And the really nice part is we came out of the recession stronger and more ready to take on work than we could have ever, than a lot of our counterparts, because we were advertising the heck out of the business while everybody else was pulling back. So I'd say, never forget to advertise yourself and build your own business while helping and trying to achieve your customers or client businesses as well. Invest in
with all
yourself
of
ultimately.
with all of the investment that, like you mentioned, in the infrastructures, in the website, the blogs, and things like that, and what would you say, the kind of like, how much are you willing to pay for, to bring on a new customers?
Yeah, so yeah, customer acquisition cost, I guess, but it's challenging because, like, for the website, for example, that's something we need as infrastructure. And I find a lot of agencies have, I hate to say it, very kind of embarrassing websites and web presence altogether. And I just didn't want to be the agency that you look at the website and you're like, how are they doing this? And so over the past couple of years, from concept to launch and then post-launch fixing it up, working on case studies. We have at time of this conversation probably about 40-45 case studies. We have like 10 in the works. All of that has probably cost us no less than $50,000 and or more than that. We also advertise and we spend about $2,000 to $5,000, which isn't a lot, but we spend that money advertising ourselves as well. We also put a lot of, we've spent a lot of time on SEO, SEO and aggregate sites and referral-based sites and backlinking. So all to say, I'd say we've probably spent $100,000 to a couple $100,000 just over the past couple of years, let's say 3 years, advertising ourselves and building ourselves up as a business, because our goal is to constantly also evolve the types of clients that we're bringing in. To your point, kind of our example earlier, when we started maybe 5 years ago, and we love the clients we've had some of the same clients we've had for years, but we've moved towards enterprise level, industry leading clients, definitely on that growth stage or larger. And that's a trajectory that we continue to kind of push for, which is why we constantly elevate the brand, because we have to. We have to show that VisualFizz is a leader in that space, and that costs money.
Right. So you spend like was that six figure north to invest into case studies and websites and stuff to sort of and then advertise yourself as well
Yeah.
to get your the words out and get more exposures. But at the end
Hmm.
of the day, like usually like what kind of work that you mentioned that you elevate you move to the enterprise level. I know
That's
some
where we're moving to. Yeah, that's where we're trying to. So there's some enterprise or some mid-size for sure.
price and maybe you can share with the audience like the typical type of help that you can help them from start to finish. What kind of assistance that you provide?
Yeah. So I'd say we're a relatively agnostic agency, where there are some that are very verticalized based on their service niche or based on their industry niche. We've had a lot of fun working with a series of different companies, from some of the largest paving and construction companies to some of the largest tech and venture capital firms, and everything in between. And ultimately, where we find ourselves is, if you have a marketing challenge, we're going to build a strategy that's a well-rounded kind of three-dimensional strategy around the total marketing kind of goals. And what I mean by that is, sometimes if we have that mid-sized company, and when I say mid-sized, that could vary quite a bit. It could be a $50 million company annually, it could be 200, could even be $1 billion. It's more on their advertising spend and their marketing dollars than their total revenue. So I think a lot of people misconstrue that. But ultimately, when they come to us on that range, sometimes we do everything for them: web development, content, social media, SEO. We are their marketing agency because they have a very small marketing department, and
Hmm.
we do really the full service, agency of record work. Or when we do get kind of closer to that larger enterprise level, or they have a very well built marketing team, more than 5, 10, 20, 30 people, then they'll come to us for a specific um, goal or a specific service line item, like just social media or just paid search, just SEO. And a lot of times that evolves into other things, because as a company, we're constantly trying to push and find new opportunities, both not only for us, but because we'll find that, for example, if we're running a paid social media campaign, but the website's not really a high performing website, we're spending dollars with an end goal that doesn't really seem logical to us. And so we will want to make the recommendation that the website is conversion ready before pushing dollars towards a campaign.
Now, with the investment in yourself, like hundreds of thousands of dollars, what do you see in the uptick of the project size? Like, like maybe can share about the size of the project
Yeah.
that you work with a client in terms of
Yeah,
maybe numbers and probably.
totally. Yeah, that definitely. When just even a couple of years ago, our average project size, I'd say 3 years ago, was about $3,500 per project per month, right? On a monthly basis, because we have a lot of retainers. So we're talking about $40,000 to $50,000 annual revenue per client.
per client.
The next year, we were closer to 5,500. Last year, we're closer to 6,500. And this year, I think we'll be closer to about 8,000, 7 to 8,000 plus on an average monthly basis on our retainer projects. So, you know, where we started at 40, 50, 60,000 annually, maybe in 2020, 2021, by 2023, we're looking at generally 70,000 to upwards of six figures per client, especially as we get those newer clients. You know, we're still retaining the older ones, but we're building on new ones, and we're building on some of the older ones to increase in investment.
So
And then
almost
from
double the size,
yeah, yeah,
almost double the
I'd
size
say almost double in a couple of years for sure,
from
because our revenue's almost doubled in a couple of years, the past couple of years.
uh,
Actually, it will double. And the other thing to note is like for web projects, you know, we were taking on, this can range for sure because some web projects can be really easy and
right, right.
basic, some are more complex, but we had kind of soft minimums of 10 to 15,000, 15 to 20. Though we still maintain some websites in that size because we can do them. Generally speaking, we're really looking to do the 35, 40, $50,000 web builds because they're more complex, they're
Mhm.
more challenging, and candidly, they're more fun. So we can be more creative and incorporate more team members like our UI UX team, our graphics team, our motion effects team, you know, and do a little bit more innovative work than simply putting up a website. You know, that's our goal, is have fun with what we're building and really respect the art of you know, the process.
What would you say the growth coming from? Like, where's your growth coming from? From the retention, or from, you know, maybe increase from the upsell, cross sell, or what's your
Yeah.
thought on that?
Yeah, I would say retained growth is huge, right? You know, the problem with being a service business versus like a software is you really have to push to double your business every year. I'm not saying you can't, you have to do that, but there's people who leave, customers who leave, and there's customers who come in, and you have to have a replacement in order to grow.
Mhm.
Happens with software, but it's a little bit different because it's kind of like a fixed process. But I would say a good majority at this point is new business coming in because of the new business size that we're looking for generally. That is attributing quite a bit towards the kind of greater growth, right? So maybe a year or two ago, we could have just increased the size of client a little bit more. But now we have to almost do both where we have to increase the retained size of our client. We don't want to ever push them to do it. We want to do it in a way where they feel comfortable, right? They see that there's value. But where I'm seeing opportunity to keep growing at the trajectory that we have been hitting now that the numbers are more challenging, we have to bring in new clients that are hitting those growth goals that I mentioned earlier. And so a lot of it is coming from new business via website, inbound stuff, and a little bit of outbound and investment into, you know, like things like events and email and other channels.
Got it. So now you kind of max out all of the services that you have. Now you just need to bring in new business so that you can introduce some from, hey, you want to do SEO, website, or paid ads, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That and selling a little bit larger, right? Like back in the day, we could have kind of gone and done social media and sold it at a certain price point. But the more we talk with our team, we have to increase the minimums because we want to do better work. It's not because we're greedy and want more money. It's really because I can involve more people in our process. Because back in the day, it was my social media person doing the design and the creative and the content and the QA. But now I have a designer who focuses on design, and the lead social person who's actually thinking about 12-month strategy. And I have the my content writer who's actually creating this, you know, who's on the social side, creating the content. And you know, it's just a more developed strategy. And so we need those hours to create and innovate. Otherwise, we're kind of status quo. But my goal is always grow my clients so that they can actually see value in what we're building for them.
What's your situation with the retention? That you have churns on the annual basis, or you try to minimize as much as possible?
I definitely try to minimize the churn as much as possible. I think that occasionally, you know, and I'm very candid in my sales approach. I am kind of the sales lead for VisualFizz. And over the years, kind of something I would say is like you sometimes have to either say no or be a little bit more strict about how you do things. And in my sales process, I always say like this is a two-way road. You know, VisualFizz or any agency, we don't just make businesses or people rich. You know, it's very hard. If we knew all the secrets, we would probably
The
stop
richest.
selling and just do it, right? But I think the big thing is like I tell them, listen, we know the best, you know, the guidelines, we know what to do, we're up to date, we have best practices, we're consistent, communication, friendly, like all the things that you need as a support system, and we will help with growth, and that's always the goal. But I find that the clients that come to us who are like, I need you to create a direct path to ROI in 3 months, and I have to see this and that. You know, of course we need goals. We have to always set KPIs. But my thing is like, I can never promise that we're just going to out of the gate make somebody successful or beat any goals that are there, because we have to work together on it. And all of the clients that have not left, who've stayed with me for years, they work with us and don't expect them to work solely for them. You know, it's a partnership, it's a relationship, and I know we're seen as a vendor, but we want to make sure that they're making money because ultimately they'll keep coming back to us. But I always mention and can over communicate, like, you know, for SEO as an example, people say, I'm going to put you on the first page, you know, you want to kind of take that with a grain of salt. And so I just try to stay overly honest. And the clients that understand that, they stay with us for years. The ones that don't, you know, they're generally not around for very long. So I try to avoid, you know, these types of clients who just have very high expectations, very quick to see some stuff that's maybe not as realistic for marketers.
But as far as the churns go, would you say maybe less than 10% is
Yeah.
US?
Yeah, I'd say once they hit the 2 to 3 month, like the 3 month mark, it's almost none. It's about probably like 5 to 10% at best.
Mhm.
But sometimes there's a little higher when, like, I call it the honeymoon stage, the first three
Yeah, that's
months.
right.
It's a make it or break it. Generally, we try to, but you know, listen, not everything's not a fit. And sometimes, you know, we help agencies move on to different agencies if it's a better fit, right? It rarely happens, but sometimes you're in such a defined niche that there is probably an agency that's out there that's better than us.
Got
And I'm going to be the one to admit it, right? There's sometimes
it.
better agencies. I'll just say it.
So we got what's that? Number one is to remove yourself from the day-to-day mentality and our task. Number two, sort of invest in back into yourself, you know, in maybe
Mhm.
into your infrastructures. What is the last one, the last bullet point that you want to share?
Yeah, oh man. You know, I think it's your team. I think it's, you know, you've got to invest in your team. And I know that's a little bit different than investing in yourself as an infrastructure, but like you've got to humanize your team. And in a time where we're fully remote at this point, we see our team members here and there, you know, when we can, sometimes on the local side, like in Chicago, I have a few people here. But we're 90%, 95% remote. And there's team members that have worked with me for 4 or 5 years. I don't know what they look like outside of Zoom or, you know,
They
you know,
go
Google
along.
Meets. Exactly. I just know here and up, right? And you have to develop a culture that is inviting, welcoming, and friendly, but also a culture of quality and kind of respect and knowledge for everybody. So it's a fine line because we are friendly and we are very focused on having a very strong team that's open to discussion and opinions and providing their best foot forward. And I want to make sure that they can see us as not only, you know, their boss, which is not the way I like things, but as a team member, very kind of horizontally, like a hierarchical structure that's more horizontal than vertical. But at the same time, knowing that, you know, as an agency, you know, we do have to make our clients money. We do have to increase and grow our clients' business, and they are paying a premium to have an agency versus hiring in-house a lot of times.
Mhm.
And so it has to be that fine line between we're going to have fun, we're going to love our job, we're going to do everything great, and also we have to provide the quality and the expectation that every time we do something, it's going to be client ready and, you know, high quality. But all in all, kind of just to summarize, um, investing in your team, making sure that you humanize them, that you care about them, that you lower as much as possible the turnover for your organization. For me, that's very, very important because even in the hiring process, I do tell people, and I know it's kind of hot air until it's not. I say we are looking for people who want to be with us for years. You know, we want you to grow with VisualFizz. We want you to see you at, you know, $500,000 and $1 million and 5 million and 10 and 20. And we want the clients to be this to this to this to this. And like, you're going to be along for the ride just like us. And as founders, we're learning, and you can teach us and we can teach you. So I would say the team is very, very crucial. It's your biggest asset, especially in a service business like mine.
Very true, very true. I couldn't agree with you more. My favorite part right now is called a Phase Five. And now, what books are you currently reading, Dan?
You know what? I hate to admit it, but I have not been reading as much as I should be. I do listen to quite a few podcasts because I'm driving a lot.
Sure.
Um, you put me on the spot with the reading, but yeah, I do listen to a lot of podcasts and audiobooks, and I do read a lot of blogs and content. So I do that, but not on the book side. But I will say a couple of the podcasts I really like
Sure.
are How I Built This by Guy Raz. I'm an entrepreneur, through and through. I love everything having to do with business growth and development, and How I Built This is great because it shows it reminds you as a viewer, as a listener, that most of the people, not everybody, some people are incredibly brilliant, but most of the entrepreneurs you think are just like out of touch, like just complete, they're multimillionaires, multi-billionaires. A lot of them are regular people like you and I who, were at the right place at the right time. They were persistent. I use this all the time: persistent, consistent, and patient. And that's really where like most of the entrepreneurs are. It's just they're doing something right at a good time. And then the other one I like, which is a little bit more kind of fun to listen to, I would say it's take this one with a grain of salt, but I do really like listening to them, is My First Million. I think they do a good job of first of all, keeping me awake when I'm driving long distances, but also they are very energetic, and they talk similarly about a lot of business owners who've done something, they hacked something together, they've built something together. They interview quite a few people, some individuals that I've met personally, which is really cool. But it's just a very high energy podcast. So those are my two favorites.
Love that. Love that. The same as book anyway. And
Yeah.
who are you following, like in terms of like in terms of looking up to, what leadership, what CEO you are following right
Hmm.
now?
Yeah, good question. There's a lot of like local people in Chicago, but I've been following a lot of A16Z, Andreessen Horowitz. I think that's been really interesting. I've not in the past taken we've never taken capital, never taken debt, none of that. But it's always interesting to me how these companies are able to scale up in different ways. Certain businesses are fully organic. They take kind of a slower route, but they grow, and the owners own 100% of the business, kind of like how we have it. And then others are able to really scale to 100 million, $500 billion company, et cetera, in maybe the same amount of time. And so I do follow quite a bit there because there's a lot of information, and I'm, constantly learning about, like all of the different moving parts of innovation and technology, because there's so much that you could be missing if you're living in a bit of a vacuum as a business owner. And that's kind of going back to like invest in yourself and remove yourself, because you have to spend 30 minutes to an hour a day as a business owner, just knowing like what's the latest, what's happening, what's new, what's out. And by following a few of these individuals and groups and companies, you're able to at least get as much as you can during a work day without
What's
going
the name one more
too
time?
crazy. Oh, it's Andreessen Horowitz or A16Z. They're
Okay.
the,
Okay,
like
got it, got
the
it,
large, yeah,
got it,
VC
got it.
firm. Yep.
And what are the some of the products or services or tool you are using in your business, or you or in your personal life?
Hmm. Good question. Um, Man, got all the good questions. There's so many tools I've been using lately. I've been dabbling. I mean, this is like the common answer everybody's giving, but been dabbling in AI, particularly, not with client. We've talked about this so much as an agency and how AI will affect our future as an agency. We're not too threatened, but I think one of the biggest things that I've seen that I think is really useful for me is the ability to speed up processes, which for me always took a long time. For example, blogs that I personally write, not anything for clients, not anything for VisualFizz, but my personal kind of records, if you will, or thoughts. It's really been great to utilize AI to assist me, because I'm not really like somebody who likes to sit down and write for the next 3 hours. I need to do quite a bit, so I love having AI as kind of a tool for that. I also use it for brainstorming. I use it sometimes to write out kind of generic emails or SOWs, which are just high level, right? With proposals, I'm always kind of trying to make sure they're as custom as they can be. But if it's kind of a service line item that I've done a lot of times, the client knows me, we can get it out really quickly, or emails for team members or little strategies. I love doing that as part of my process. And sometimes, even if I'm just a little tired at the end of the day and my mind isn't functioning the way it was after a good coffee at 10 a.m., AI kind of helps me be proactive still and think clearly and kind of do some of that for me. And then I could always improve upon it. So we use Jasper, we use like some of the other AI tools. Um, and, you know, I think that's just a big one for me right now. And from
Yeah.
personal life, it's,
How, how's your
yes.
life? Like, like you balance, you have enough 8 hours sleep per day, or like, you know?
Yes, 8 hours is challenging. I did get 8 hours last night though, which has been great. Personal life is actually great. I would say, knock on wood, right? Like things are going really well. When the business is finally grown up a little bit and I have a team that I can trust, I could leave. I do have actually a thing for entrepreneurs. Like one of my goals since starting VisualFizz, because of why we started it, was to travel 100 days a year. Whether it's a workcation, so I'm not on vacation, but I'm out in a different country or a different city or just road tripping it every year for the past 5, 6 years at least, maybe more. I've traveled at least 100 days a year. And that's something for me that's very personally important. I think it's really good for my own kind of personal mental health to be away and to travel and to have new experiences, because I easily get bored. Even as we speak, I'm not at my house. I'm in Wisconsin. But for me, that's always been really crucial. And then beyond that, just like continuing to constantly learn and better yourself and be active and, make new
Right.
friends. And, I believe heavily in having a lot of passions. And so I love cocktails and cooking and, whatever comes up. It's just like everything's kind of exciting. So from my end, this is why I'm an entrepreneur, because I easily get bored and I keep on wanting to do new
Exactly,
things.
exactly.
And that's
Uh,
why the agency world has been so much fun, because every day is different.
you married with kids, or
Married, yeah, 2 dogs, no kids yet.
two dog, no kids? Yeah. Right, no problem.
Yes, yes.
Then what would you ask, or what would you wish your 20 years old self knew?
Hmm. Yeah, good question. 20 years. I would just go for as much as possible, but I would say stick to it. I realized it's almost like when you play games, right? Like video games. I'm not a big video gamer, but it's very easy to go from level 1 to level 2, a little tiny bit harder level 2 to 3, little tiny bit harder 3 to 4. And then once you hit 5, 6, it keeps on getting exponentially harder till you get to like boss level, right? 7, 8, 9, 10. And what I realized, it kind of had to come to me the hard way, is I'm really, really good at getting from 1 to 3 to 5. And then I'm really bad at sticking from 5 to 6 to 7 to 8, those exponential kind of growth opportunities. And so when I was 20, 21, 22, I told you I started my first business at 19. I wasn't allowed in a lot of the venues that were hosting networking events because I wasn't legally 21. But, I would say stick to the things you're really passionate about versus, jumping off too early. Because I think I had a couple ideas that if they were around actually could have been very successful. I just didn't stick to them. And get past that level 5, level 6, level 7, and even VisualFizz. We are hitting that like mark of like 6 and 7. Like it is, each year we have really unique challenges, and I wouldn't say any of it was easy. But it's only going to get harder. But I'm ready for that. So I would put that mindset in my 20-year-old self and say like, keep going, even though it seems like it's slow, and just explore every avenue until you're ready to just, call it quits, but explore it a little bit further.
Great analogy. I love the analogy that you said, with the game
Yeah,
analogy.
it's a fun one. Yeah, I just thought of it like 2 weeks
Right.
ago.
Then I think we've hit the time. I want to thank you so much for your time, your energies, and you bring a lot of good stuff in here. And I would just say thank you for your insight. And maybe we have another time to bring on you another one to
Anytime.
share your story again.
Yeah, anytime you want. Happy to be part of it. I really
Oh,
appreciate your time as well.
thank you, Dan. Appreciate your time.
Thanks. Bye
Bye bye.
bye.